In 1977, a young woman named Robin Davidson set out on a journey no one believed she could survive. With 4 camels and her loyal dog, she walked alone across 1,700 miles of Australia's harsh desert, from Alice Springs to the Indian Ocean. It wasn't for fame or adventure, but for silence, freedom, and something deeper within. Based on her true story, Tracks, released in 2013, is not just a tale of survival, but of isolation, loss, and the quiet courage it takes to face the world alone. The story begins in 1975 in the dusty Australian town of Alice Springs. A young woman named Robin Davidson arrives alone, having left behind her home and everything familiar. She has made a life-changing decision to walk across the vast Australian desert, all the way to the Indian Ocean. But Robin has no money, no place to live, and no camels, the very animals she needs to carry her supplies across the desert. Determined, she begins searching for work and writing letters to potential sponsors, explaining her plan. But days go by and no one replies. For a while she finds temporary work and a place to stay, but that's just survival. What she really needs are 3 camels and the essential gear for her journey. Every time Robin shares her plan, people think she's crazy. They laugh or dismiss her dream. Still, she doesn't back down. In the same town, there's a camel farm run by a grumpy man named Kurt. Robin approaches him, asking for help. Kurt is skeptical and mocks her idea, saying the plan is ridiculous and doomed to fail. But Robin stands firm. She tells him her father once crossed Africa's Kalahari Desert in 1935. Her dreams aren't so different. Eventually, Kurt proposes a deal. If Robin works for him for 8 months without pay, he'll teach her how to handle camels and give her 2 wild ones when the time is up. Robin agrees. When she asks for a written agreement, Kurt refuses, saying his word is enough. Kurt's wife offers her a place in the house, but Robin chooses to stay outside, pitching her tent near the farm. Over the next 8 months, she works tirelessly under harsh conditions. She learns everything about camels, their temperaments, their dangers, and especially how aggressive males become during mating season. Kurt also advises her to start walking barefoot to toughen her feet against the rocky ground. Though she gains valuable experience, Kurt is far from kind. He overworks her, exploits her labor, and treats her poorly. Still, Robin endures. By the end of the 8 months, she has become skilled in camel training and handling. But when the time comes to collect the 2 camels Kurt promised, he goes back on his word and throws her off the farm. Robin is heartbroken and angry. Once again, she has to start over. With nowhere else to go, she finds an abandoned house and turns it into a makeshift home. Not far from there, she learns about Sail Mohammed, an Afghan Australian whose family has raised camels for generations. She meets with him and shares her story, including how Kurt betrayed her. Sally listens patiently. He's honest and tells her she might want to reconsider. What she's planning could very well get her killed, but Robin's mind is made up. She's not the kind to walk away from her convictions. Sally respects her resolve. He agrees to give her 1 camel in exchange for a month of work. Robin accepts gladly. Though she still needs 2 more camels, it's a start, and she's finally working with someone who believes in honesty and fairness. Robin happily spent the next month working for Sail Mohammed, learning even more about camels during her time with him. Over these weeks, a few old friends came to visit her. Seeing her living in such rough conditions, they expressed concern and suggested she shorten her journey or take an easier path. But Robin wasn't interested. She had no desire for comfort or conformity. She preferred solitude over small talk. Among the visitors was Rick Smolin, a photographer. He suggested that National Geographic might be interested in sponsoring her journey. Robin didn't like the idea of being photographed, but she also needed money. The next day, her friends left. True to his word, Sally gave Robin a female camel at the end of the month. A few days later, she discovered it was pregnant. Instead of being frustrated, Robin decided to wait patiently and let things unfold. Later, Robin visited Kurt's old farm, hoping to finally claim the 2 camels he had promised. But Kurt had sold the property to someone else, David. When Robin explained the previous deal, David refused to honor it, saying Kurt never told him anything about it. However, when David struggled to manage the camels, Robin stepped in to help. Impressed by her skill and touched by her determination, he gave her the 2 camels. Now with 3 camels, Robin was finally ready to move forward. She wrote to National Geographic, explaining her expedition in full. She hoped they would sponsor her. Just days before departure, Sail gave Robin one final warning. If a male camel ever charged at her, she shouldn't hesitate, just shoot. He even gave her a rifle for protection. Robin also wrote heartfelt letters to her father and sister. Her sister, living a settled married life, quietly wished Robin would choose the same. But her father, once an adventurer himself, supported her dream. Soon, National Geographic replied. She said a quiet goodbye to her family and to sail. By now, the pregnant camel had given birth. Robin packed her gear onto 3 camels while the baby walked alongside its mother. Her loyal dog, Diggity, followed beside her. As she moved through the outback, Robin passed small villages and remote towns. At certain stops, Rick Smolin would be waiting for her, camera in hand. He took photos at every opportunity, sometimes welcomed, sometimes not. Gradually, Robin's journey started making headlines. After nearly 29 days of continuous walking, she had already covered an incredible distance. The public was becoming fascinated by the camel lady. One major obstacle came when she reached Mount Olga, or Kartartituta. Park rangers refused her entry, which forced her to take a longer, more difficult detour. She made camp nearby, and Rick joined her for the night. He took more photos the next morning, then Robin continued alone. While Rick's support was helpful, his constant photographing began to wear on Robin. She never liked being in the spotlight. During a violent sandstorm, instead of helping her, Rick started taking pictures. Furious and hurt, she lashed out at him, but after so many weeks alone, the emotional distance between them faded. That night, they became intimate. For Robin, it wasn't love, just a brief moment of connection in the middle of isolation. The journey moved on. Some days were incredibly hard, both physically and emotionally. Other times, strangers showed kindness, offering supplies or small acts of generosity. Robin stayed focused, pushing forward. By the end of 2 months, all 3 camels were still in good shape, and Diggity remained her loyal companion. But Robin herself was growing weary. Both her body and spirit were beginning to feel the weight of the desert. One morning, Robin woke up to a terrifying sight. Her camels had vanished. Panicked, she rushed out into the desert, searching for them in every direction. After a long and exhausting search, she finally found them. Relieved but frustrated, she lost her temper and lashed out at one of the camels, overwhelmed by stress. A few days later, she arrived at a remote village inhabited by indigenous people. Rick and one of his colleagues were already there, waiting for her. Robin planned to rest for a day or 2, but soon discovered a major obstacle ahead. The next section of her route passed through sacred land, where outsider women were not allowed. That meant she'd need to take a long, dangerous detour that could extend her journey by weeks. However, if a local Aboriginal guide accompanied her, she could be granted safe passage. The villagers initially agreed to send someone with her, but Rick, driven by his desire to capture rare moments, secretly took photographs of a sacred ceremony. Deeply offended, the community withdrew their support. Robin was left with no choice but to take the longer route. This new path was incredibly risky, with no clear trails and almost no water. It was the kind of place where getting lost or dying was a real possibility. Still, Robin refused to give up. She pushed forward. One afternoon, while resting, she spotted 3 aggressive male camels charging toward her. She immediately remembered Sele's warning not to hesitate. With a heavy heart, she raised her rifle and shot 2 of them. Though it saved her life, she was devastated by the act. The route she had chosen felt like a maze. There were no clear landmarks, and she often didn't know where she was. Days passed with no sign of water. Then finally, exhausted and dehydrated, Robin reached a riverbank. She bathed, gave her camels water, and allowed herself a moment to breathe. While there, she encountered a small group of travelers, 3 indigenous men and 1 Australian named David. After Robin explained her journey, they were stunned. David warned her that the area ahead was full of hidden gorges and cliffs, and she could easily lose her way. Robin explained that she had no choice. She couldn't take the sacred route without offending the local culture. Understanding her situation, David decided to help. He introduced her to Mr. Eddy, a kind and knowledgeable Aboriginal elder who spoke English and knew the land well. Mr. Eddy agreed to guide Robin through the next stretch of her journey, offering her both protection and wisdom as they moved deeper into the desert. Mr. Eddy, though he mostly spoke in his native language, was an invaluable guide. He knew the land well, and with him by her side, Robin no longer feared getting lost in the unfamiliar terrain. For several days, Eddy travelled with her. Along the way, Robin met a man named Glendale, a well-known traveller. She stayed with him for a night, sharing stories about her journey. Robin asked him for a small favour, to send a letter to National Geographic on her behalf. She needed more supplies. While this was supposed to be the end of Eddy's part in the journey, Robin pleaded for him to continue. Eddy pointed at his worn-out shoes and explained they weren't suitable for such a long trek. Glendale offered his own pair, and with that, the journey continued. As they walked, some curious tourists spotted Robin and tried to take photos. She hated the attention and refused to stop, moving ahead quickly. By now, people had begun calling her the Camel Lady, a title that followed her wherever she went. One day, Eddie returned with a freshly hunted kangaroo. Robin was about to prepare it when Eddie gently stopped her, explaining that according to local tradition, women were not allowed to butcher animals. Robin respected his culture and stepped back. After nearly 20 more days, Robin and Eddie reached another village where Rick was waiting. Realizing how dangerous it would be, promised to set up water drops for her along the path, though it wouldn't be easy. Robin soon entered the driest part of her journey. This was her most mentally and physically exhausting phase. The intense heat blurred her senses. She began hallucinating, and at one point she even lost her compass. After a frantic search, she recovered it, but her grip on reality had started to weaken. In that vulnerable state, she stumbled upon a small house. At first she thought it might be another mirage, but it wasn't. An elderly woman opened the door and welcomed her inside. The family gave her food, helped her bathe, and offered comfort. They were stunned to learn that Robin had come so far, alone and on foot. After spending a few days recovering there, Robin quietly prepared to continue her journey once more. One day, tragedy struck when Robin's beloved dog, Diggity, drank from a poisoned water source and died of thirst-induced poisoning. The loss devastated her. Diggity had been more than just a companion. He was her emotional anchor through loneliness, exhaustion, and fear. Losing him broke her. It reopened old wounds too. She had lost another dog as a child, and that pain came rushing back with unbearable force. Robin was left shattered, barely holding herself together. Despite the grief, she continued onward. She was now close to her destination. She paused in a small village to recover, but by this time her incredible journey had captured public attention. Journalists and photographers began arriving, hoping to witness and document the end of her historic trek. But Robin, consumed by sorrow and emotionally drained, wanted no part of the attention. She didn't want to be celebrated, she just wanted to finish in peace. Rick Smolin, the photographer who had accompanied her at different points in the journey, came to see her. This time he offered quiet support without intruding. They agreed to meet again, not in front of crowds or cameras, but at the Indian Ocean where her journey would truly end. Robin stayed in the village a few more days, allowing herself to rest and process everything. Then, at last, she completed the final leg of her journey. When she reached the Indian Ocean, Rick was waiting for her. Many people wanted to see her arrival to photograph and celebrate her, but Robin had chosen a private beach, known only to Rick. One final act of defiance against the world's gaze.